So the natural nature of man is to really want to rid any kind of evil in our life. I mean, we just want to get rid of it right now.
Right. So Keller says, with time and perspective, most of us can see good reasons for at least some of the tragedy and pain that occurs in life. Why couldn't it be possible that from God's vantage point, there are good reasons for all of them? In fact, sometimes I recommend to people that they write down on one side of a sheet of paper the worst things that have ever happened to them, and then on the other side of that paper, write down the best things that have ever happened to them. And the older that you get, trust me, and Steve and I are getting very old, so we know this from experience.
Your stories are so much more.
Yeah. But we can now look back at certain things that happened to us, which when they happened, made no sense. And we couldn't imagine that these things would ever make sense and would bring great good because they seemed so bad. And yet, many of the things that we write on the one side of the page of best things we've ever experienced are connected directly or indirectly, at least, and often directly, to things we write on the sheet of paper.
And Randy,
that's worst things.
In your book, you list some of the things that have happened to your life. Diabetes, of course, the loss of the job here, and then the beginning of VPM that started, the rescuing. Who would have ever imagined being in jail for a period of time, of course, during that season. And in your book, you talk about that.
Right, and I think you can do the same thing in your life, and especially as you get older, where you look back and there's been enough time passed. That's what I mean. I'm not saying older people are smarter. I'm saying hopefully we do get wiser, but my point is, when you have decades and decades behind you and you can look back, you can say, God, you did this, you did that. You're still doing things today that came out of that hard thing. Romans 8:28 and 29, we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to his purpose. All things? Really, Lord? All things? Each and everything? Wouldn't that be a perfect example of God promising that his children at least will not undergo pointless suffering? We'll undergo suffering, for sure, guaranteed. But it will not be pointless. God will accomplish something through it. And he will often accomplish something great that we never imagined. For those whom he foreknew, he also predestined to be conformed to the image of his Son. Part of what comes out of life's suffering is conformity to the image of Jesus, becoming more like Jesus. Because we submit ourselves and we have faith in God. It doesn't take faith when everything's going your way. Have you had times in your life, even if it's a couple of hours, where everything is going your way? Maybe it's a season, maybe it's a year, maybe it's a day, and you say, this was like the perfect day, and then the next day is just terrible, and you're looking at it, and you're going, well, I'm glad yesterday was perfect, because we've lost that. Well, what if God is telling the truth, and he's causing all things to work together for good in your life? The worst things that happen to you on your worst day every bit as much as the best things that happen to you in your best day. And folks, if God can't be trusted when he says, we know that all things work together for good to those who love God, then he can't be trusted at all. So let's just bag it. Let's forget this Christian faith thing. If Romans 8:28 is not true, then there's no basis for trusting the rest of the Bible. So if you believe in Jesus, you say, well, he's proven himself to me. I'm just not so sure of this verse. It's part of the same book. Is this the truth of God? If we can lay claim to this, then our perspective on suffering as believers will be different.